What if tomorrow you woke up and Spider-Man was swinging through Gotham City? What if Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne were competing billionaires in the same economy? What if the Avengers and the Justice League had to share the same Earth, the same timeline, the same reality? Sounds like a dream come true for comic fans, right? But here's the thing nobody talks about. The moment you merge Marvel and DC into one universe, you don't get the ultimate superhero paradise. You get the ultimate catastrophe. Because these two universes weren't just built differently. They were built on fundamentally incompatible foundations. The power scales don't match. The cosmic hierarchies contradict each other. The very nature of heroism means something different in each world. And if you actually tried to fuse them permanently, not as a crossover event, but as a single continuous reality, the timeline wouldn't just bend. It would shatter into infinite pieces. Today we're going to explore exactly what would happen, who would survive, who would dominate, and why the greatest superhero story ever told might also be the last one. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll never look at your favorite characters the same way again. Let's start with something that seems simple but is actually the first crack in the foundation. Power scaling. In the Marvel Universe, the most powerful beings operate on a certain level. Thor is a god, but he can be hurt. Hulk is virtually indestructible, but he has limits. Even cosmic entities like Galactus or the Celestials exist within a framework where they can be challenged, defeated, or at least temporarily stopped by sufficiently powerful or clever heroes. The whole narrative structure of Marvel depends on this. Heroes punch above their weight class. Underdogs find ways to win. Power alone doesn't guarantee victory. Now look at DC. Superman, in his base form, is essentially a god walking among mortals. He's faster than light, strong enough to move planets, virtually invulnerable to anything except magic and kryptonite. And he's not even the most powerful being in DC. You've got Darkseid, whose true form exists outside the multiverse itself. You've got the Spectre, the literal wrath of God. You've got Dr. Manhattan, who perceives all of time simultaneously and can disintegrate matter with a thought. DC's power ceiling isn't just higher than Marvel's, it's in a completely different atmosphere. So what happens when these scales collide? Let's take a simple example, Thor versus Superman. In Marvel, Thor is one of the heaviest hitters. He's held his own against cosmic threats, wielded weapons that can shatter planets, fought beings that exist outside normal space and time. But Superman, at his peak, has sneezed away solar systems, bench-pressed the weight of the Earth for 5 days straight without sunlight, and flown so fast he broke through the boundaries of reality itself. In a merged universe, Thor goes from being a top-tier powerhouse to being solidly mid-tier. And that's just one character. Imagine the Avengers facing a threat and calling in their biggest guns, only to realize that the Justice League's biggest guns make theirs look like toys. Imagine Thanos, the mad titan who conquered half the universe, having to contend with Darkseid, whose power dwarfs his in almost every measurable way. The entire power structure of the Marvel Universe would have to be recalibrated. Heroes who were once the last line of defense would become support players. Villains who were existential threats would become regional nuisances. The whole dramatic tension that makes Marvel stories work would collapse under the weight of DC's cosmic heavyweights. But power scaling is just the beginning. Let's talk about something even more fundamental, the nature of heroism itself. Marvel and DC were built on different philosophical foundations, and those foundations create characters who wouldn't just coexist awkwardly, they would actively conflict with each other. In Marvel, heroes are fundamentally flawed. Peter Parker can't pay his rent. Tony Stark is an alcoholic. The X-Men are hated and feared by the people they protect. Marvel heroes struggle, fail, make terrible decisions, and sometimes cause as much damage as they prevent. That's the point. They're human, even when they're not human. Their stories are about perseverance in the face of a world that doesn't appreciate them, about doing the right thing even when it costs everything, about the burden of power in a universe that doesn't care. DC heroes traditionally are aspirational. Superman isn't interesting because he struggles with his power. He's interesting because he chooses to use infinite power with infinite restraint. Batman isn't compelling because he's psychologically damaged, though he is. He's compelling because he transformed trauma into an unbreakable will to protect the innocent. DC heroes are symbols first, people second. They represent what humanity could become, not what it currently is. Now put these philosophies in the same room. How does Spider-Man, who can barely keep his life together, interact with Superman, who seems to have everything figured out? How does Wolverine, whose entire existence is defined by violence and suffering, relate to Wonder Woman, who embodies hope and compassion as fundamental cosmic forces? These aren't just different characters. They're different answers to the question of what a hero should be. And the conflicts wouldn't stay philosophical, they'd become practical, even violent. Consider Batman and the Punisher existing in the same city. Batman has a strict no-killing rule. It's the core of his identity. The Punisher's entire methodology is killing criminals before they can hurt anyone else. In a merged universe, either Batman has to tolerate a mass murderer operating in his territory, or the Punisher has to accept that his methods are considered villainous. There's no middle ground, no compromise that preserves both characters as we know them. Or consider the governments of this merged world. In Marvel, the United States has S.H.I.E.L.D., a massive intelligence apparatus designed to monitor and respond to superhuman threats. In DC, the government has Argus, which serves a similar function but operates under different rules and relationships with heroes. Merge them, and you have bureaucratic chaos. Which protocols apply? Which heroes are registered, sanctioned, or considered outlaws? The political infrastructure of superhero society would be a nightmare of competing jurisdictions and contradictory policies. But let's go deeper. Let's talk about the cosmic level, where the real problems emerge. Because both Marvel and DC have elaborate cosmologies, hierarchies of godlike beings that govern reality itself. And these cosmologies are mutually exclusive. In Marvel, the cosmic hierarchy goes something like this. At the top, you have the one above all, the supreme being who created everything. Below that, you have entities like the Living Tribunal, who maintains balance across the multiverse. Then you have abstract entities like eternity, infinity, death, and oblivion, who embody fundamental aspects of existence. Below them, cosmic powers like Galactus, the Celestials, and various other godlike beings. It's a structured hierarchy with clear rules about who outranks who and what powers each level possesses. DC's cosmology is different. You have the Presence, roughly equivalent to the one above all, the supreme creator. But below that, things get complicated. You have the Endless, embodiments of concepts like dream, death, and destiny who exist outside normal reality. You have the New Gods, beings like Darkseid and Highfather who exist in a dimension that transcends normal spacetime. You have the Source, a fundamental energy that underlies all existence. You have the Monitor and Anti-Monitor, beings who oversee the multiverse itself. And none of these hierarchies map cleanly onto Marvel's. So what happens when the one above all meets the Presence? Are they the same being? Different aspects of a higher unity? Competing supreme beings, which would be a logical contradiction? What about the Living Tribunal and the Spectre, both of whom serve as cosmic judges? Do they share jurisdiction? Compete for authority? The moment you merge these universes, you create paradoxes at the highest levels of reality. Paradoxes that would ripple down through every layer of existence, destabilizing the very fabric of spacetime. And speaking of multiverses, both Marvel and DC have them. Marvel has its numbered universes, with Earth 616 being the main continuity. DC has its numbered Earths, with Prime Earth being the main continuity. Both have established that their multiverses contain infinite variations, alternate timelines, parallel dimensions. But the rules governing these multiverses are different. The way time travel works is different. The way reality can be altered is different. Merge the universes, and you merge the multiverses, creating a metastructure so complex and contradictory that it couldn't possibly remain stable. This isn't speculation. We've actually seen what happens when Marvel and DC collide, and the results support exactly what I'm describing. In 1996, the two companies published a crossover event called Marvel vs. DC, followed by the Amalgam Comics experiment, where characters from both universes were literally fused together. Spider-Man and Superboy became Spider-Boy. Batman and Wolverine became Dark Claw. The X-Men and the Justice League became the JLX. It was creative and fun, but it was explicitly presented as a temporary state, an unstable fusion that couldn't last because reality itself rejected it. The in-universe explanation was that two cosmic entities, the brothers, personifications of each universe, became aware of each other and fought for dominance. The merged amalgam universe was a compromise, a temporary ceasefire that both realities eventually rejected, separating back into their original forms because coexistence was fundamentally impossible. Even in comic book logic, where anything can happen, the writers acknowledge that permanent fusion doesn't work. But let's imagine it did. Let's imagine some cosmic event, some reality-warping force, permanently merged Marvel and DC into a single timeline. What would that world actually look like? First, you'd have a massive redundancy problem. Both universes have patriotic super soldiers. Captain America and Superman both serve as moral centers for their respective worlds. You can have both, but one of them becomes redundant. Both universes have genius billionaires in power armor. Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne fill similar narrative niches. In a merged universe, either they're rivals, which could be interesting, or one overshadows the other, which diminishes a beloved character. Both universes have teams of young heroes learning the ropes. Both have dark anti-heroes who operate outside the law. Both have cosmic-level threats that challenge everything. Every archetype is doubled, and not every version can maintain narrative importance. Second, you'd have villain problems. Marvel and DC villains operate on different scales and with different motivations. Thanos wants to impress death by killing half the universe. Darkseid wants to eliminate free will and rule all existence with the anti-life equation. In a merged universe, are they allies? Rivals? Does one become subordinate to the other? What about Magneto and Lex Luthor, both brilliant villains who believe they're the heroes of their own stories? Dr. Doom and Vandal Savage, both immortal conquerors with god complexes? The villain ecosystem would be as chaotic as the hero ecosystem. Third, and this is the really interesting part, you'd have a history problem. Both universes have detailed timelines stretching back thousands, sometimes billions of years. In Marvel, the Celestials visited Earth millions of years ago, shaping human evolution. In DC, the Guardians of the Universe formed billions of years ago, eventually creating the Green Lantern Corps. Both histories can't be true simultaneously without massive contradictions. Did the Celestials visit? Did the Guardians form? Both? Neither? Some weird fusion of the two? The past itself becomes paradoxical, and the past determines the present. If Krypton existed in this merged universe, why didn't the Celestials notice? If Asgard has always been real, why doesn't the Green Lantern Corps have records of it? Every established fact in either universe creates questions about why the other universe's established facts don't contradict it. The weight of accumulated continuity would crush any attempt at coherent storytelling. Now let's talk about what fans actually want when they imagine this merger, because I think there's a gap between the fantasy and the reality. When people imagine Marvel and DC merging, they imagine the crossover moments. Superman and Thor having an arm wrestling contest. Batman and Iron Man comparing gadgets. The Avengers and Justice League teaming up against some ultimate threat that neither could face alone. These moments would be amazing. I'm not denying that. But crossover moments work precisely because they're temporary. They're special because they're rare. The excitement comes from seeing characters who shouldn't meet suddenly occupying the same panel, the same story, the same reality. Make it permanent, and that excitement fades. Superman meeting Spider-Man for the first time is thrilling. Superman seeing Spider-Man for the 1000th time is Tuesday. The novelty that makes crossovers exciting is also proof that these universes work better apart. There's also the creative problem. Marvel and DC are owned by different companies, Disney and Warner Brothers respectively. A permanent merger would require unprecedented corporate cooperation, shared creative control, joint ownership of beloved properties worth billions of dollars. The legal and financial obstacles would be staggering. But even if those obstacles were somehow overcome, you'd still have the problem of different creative visions, different editorial philosophies, different ideas about what these characters mean and how they should develop. The corporate merger would be as unstable as the cosmic one. But here's where I want to flip the script, because despite everything I've said, part of me, the same part that made me fall in love with comics in the first place, still wants to see it happen. Because the chaos I've described isn't just a problem, it's a story. Maybe the greatest story either universe could tell. Imagine a merged reality that knows it shouldn't exist. Characters gradually realizing that their memories don't quite add up, that the history they remember contains contradictions that can't be resolved. Heroes and villains alike discovering that they're living in an impossible universe, a cosmic accident that violates the fundamental laws of existence. The tension wouldn't be some external threat to be punched into submission. It would be reality itself, slowly unraveling as the paradoxes accumulate. You could have Superman and Captain America standing side by side, not just as allies, but as characters grappling with the philosophical implications of their coexistence. What does it mean to be a symbol of hope when there are two symbols, each representing slightly different hopes? What does it mean to be the strongest when strength itself is measured by contradictory scales? You could have Batman and Iron Man forced to work together, not because they like each other, but because their combined genius is the only thing that might stabilize reality long enough to find a real solution. Their rivalry wouldn't be petty. It would be existential. The fate of everything depending on two men who represent different answers to the question of how brilliance should be used. You could have the cosmic entities themselves becoming characters, the one above all and the presence, the living tribunal and the specter, forced to negotiate, to compromise, to acknowledge that their absolute authority isn't so absolute after all. The metaphysical drama would be as compelling as the physical battles. And you could have an ending that doesn't reset everything to the status quo. Maybe the universe is separate again, but changed. Maybe characters retain memories of the merger, carrying the lessons they learned into their restored realities. Maybe some characters choose to stay in the wrong universe, finding that they fit better there. Maybe the merger fails, but the attempt matters. The connections formed persisting even across dimensional barriers. This is the story that a Marvel-DC merger could tell. Not an endless crossover event, but a meditation on what these universes mean, why they're different, and what we learn about each by seeing them collide. It would require creative courage and corporate cooperation that probably won't happen. But if it did, and if it was done right, it could be the definitive superhero story, the one that puts all the others in perspective. So where does that leave us? With a paradox, appropriately enough. A Marvel-DC merger would break the timeline, destabilize reality, create irreconcilable contradictions at every level from street crime to cosmic hierarchy. It shouldn't work. It can't work. And yet, the very impossibility of it is what makes it compelling. We want to see it precisely because we know we shouldn't. We want to see the rules broken, the boundaries crossed, the impossible made manifest. Maybe that's what superheroes are really about. Not the powers or the costumes or the epic battles, but the yearning for transcendence. The dream that limitations can be overcome, that categories can be dissolved, that even the fundamental structure of reality can be challenged by beings bold enough to try. Marvel and DC merging permanently would be a disaster, but it would be our disaster. A beautiful, chaotic, contradictory celebration of everything we love about these characters and these stories. And who knows? Maybe someday, some cosmic entity will read this video and decide to make it happen. If you're watching, Beyonder, Living Tribunal, Mr. Muxisbalg, anyone with reality warping powers, you know what to do. We're ready for the chaos. Here's my question for you. If you had to choose one crossover, one moment of Marvel and DC collision that you'd want to see, what would it be? Whose meeting would matter most to you? Which battle? Which team-up? Which impossible conversation would make the whole paradox worthwhile? Tell me in the comments because I genuinely want to know. If this video made you think about your favorite universes in a new way, hit that like button. It helps more fans discover content that goes beyond the surface. And if you want to keep exploring the deep questions hidden inside the stories we love, subscribe and turn on notifications. We go nerdy on topics like this every week. Until next time, stay curious, stay imaginative, and remember, In a universe where gods and monsters exist, anything is possible. Even the impossible.